It's a great shot. Oh, it's all those kids, isn't it? Careful, careful. Hey.
キック受けたら倒れろよ。ファーファーファー。世界征服を企む悪の帝国はそう簡単にはやられないのだ。テレビじゃ番組の終わりにはやられるって決まってるんだぞ。ファーファーファーファーファー。
世界征服は順調に進行中かい。でも世界を征服したらその後が大変だぞ。どんな世界を作るつもりなんだい？
そんなの知らないよ。めちゃめちゃになってそれでおしまいさ。めちゃめちゃにするならそっちの方が面白そうだな。レインボーレンジャーなんかやめて僕も悪の組織に入る。
Yeah, there's some fantastic subtext there, right? Much to think about. Oh, Richard. Careful, man. Don't fly too close to the sun now. I'm afraid he's already flown too close to the sun. I've seen that shot of Richard a few times now, right? The back of him in the distance, heading towards an exit, a gate, down the street.
そうそう、この頃だよ。夜中に医者に駆け込んだっけ。
Oh.
大きくなったろうな。育ち盛りだから、ちょっと見ない間に顔も変わったかな。
Oh
でもね、
no.
僕には自信があるよ。ローゼマリーがどんなに大きくなっても、あの子だってすぐにわかる。例の連続殺人犯の少年を僕が撃ち殺した時の新聞の切り抜きや報告書の写しだ。
Look at that. Love the reflection there.
なんて言う気はない。僕が人殺しをやったのは事実だ。自己弁護するわけじゃない。ただ、あの子には本当のことを知ってほしいんだ。
Yeah, it's quite a detailed dossier, isn't it?
わかったわ。
毎晩9時にはうちに帰ってるから。
リヒャルト、あなたずいぶん戻ったわ。
え？
あの若々しい刑事になりたての頃みたいな。
Is that right? Oh God.
まるで私たちが知り合った頃みたいな目に。
It's a good thing, but storytelling terms, it's a bad thing, right? Death flags again.
今ご契約いただきますと特典がありまして。しかしうちはもう他の保険に
Oh,
入
look
って
at
ますから
this.
ね。そこをなんとかお願いしますよ、リーベルトさん。
今の保険で十分ですよ。
Liebert.
4年前引っ越してきた時に。
No, 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 no. He's here for
加入したばかりなんですよ。
another purpose.
4年前ですか。以前はどちらに？
マンハイムの近くのブルンタールです。
ブルンタールですか。いいところですね。ところで奥さん、お子さんは？
Yeah, he's here for another
息子な
purpose.
ら今ミュンヘンの大学に。
大学生でいらっしゃる。ぜひお話だけでも。
Ooh.
こちらが息子さん？可愛くてらしたんですね。お名前は？
ヨハンです。お茶でもいかが？
ああ、もうそんなお構いなく。
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
何の変哲もないことほど怪しいものはないってとこですか。
なるほど。
Look at that. Great subtle animation there.
でもね、僕には自信があるよ。ローゼマリーがどんなに大きくなっても、あの子だってすぐにわかる。
Time to look at the records, huh?
こちらが出生証明書です。
He's about to find out.
フェルツさん。
Can't smoke in here, bro.
何度言ったらわかるんですか。この役場は禁煙です。4年前にここは火事になったでしょ。書類が全部焼けて大変なことになったでしょ。
How about
その
that?
時に書類を作り直したんですか。
個
You've
人
alluded to
申
other
請
fires.
で作り直したんですけど、こんな小さな町ですから、それでも十分元通りになりましたが。
That Johan's a tricky fellow, isn't he? Clever. Oh, great shot.
いや、よく来てくれたね、ドクター。
Rudy!
お久しぶりです。ライヒワイン先生。
ドクター・テンマは君のところに現れてヨハンという男を探していると。
はい。彼の話には何の根拠もありませんでした。ただもしこの人物が私が研究していたあの連続殺人犯ペーター・ユルゲンスをそそのかした友人であったとしたら、一連の事件すべてに突破口が見出せます。
頼むよ、ドクター・ゲイレン。
はい。大至急ユルゲンスの面会の許可を取ります。彼にこの写真を見せて、その反応次第ではドクター・テンマの無実が証明できるんです。
See, it feels like it's getting intense. It's getting close to Johan, but it's still really quite early in the series, right? So us, the audience, kind of has it in the back of our minds that ultimately it's not going to, get to him. Certainly not this early in the series, right? So that's how. 2 years later. Yeah. Oh. How about that? I just actually got chills.
ブルンタールで生まれた本
Great
物の
transition.
ヨハン・リーベルトは2歳の時に
リーベルト夫妻は死んだ息子の身代わりを役場の記録が消失したのに乗じてさも生きているように申請し直したということか。
おそらく。
それじゃあ今存在するヨハン・リーベルトという人物は一体誰なんだ？
Who the hell is he?
どうだい、飯でも。
あ、いや、ちょっと私戻らないと。
I have to get back home for a potential call.
走り回ってまだ仕事かね。
いえ、電話がかかってくるかもしれないんです。もしかしたら娘と会えるかもしれないんです。大丈夫ですよ。
よし、君は完全に立ち直った。
Oh God.
はい、もし
He
もし。
just got home.
お父さん、
Oh.
ローゼマリー、会えるとも。
Oh God.
いつ
Oh God. Yeah. He's gone.
会えるよ。
He's gone.
リヒャルトさん、ヨハンです。
Speak of the devil.
知らないな。
君の友人ヨハンは君に手紙をくれるだけで面識はな
Right.
かっ
He's
た
never
と
seen
言
the
っていた
face,
ね。
right? Apparently.
ボールペン貸してくれないか。
Don't give him the damn pen.
悪いが君に物を渡すのは
Yeah.
禁じられているんだ。
ボールペンを。
Don't. God damn it, bro. Right. Like the photos.
公園だ。
え？
公園だ。人を殺した翌日。もうやめよう。もうこれっきりにしよう。そう思いながら公園に行った。子供をいっぱい連れていた。
テープを回すの忘れていた。
Get that pen
もう
back.
一度最初から。
君もおいでよ。
え？
君もおいでよ。君もおいでよ。君もおいでよ。君も。
Should've. God damn. Do you know how strong you have to be to pull that off? Oh, that's a great shot.
ヨハン・リーベルトです。何度もお電話したんですが、いらっしゃらなかったので。
He scratched out the blonde hair.
どうだったね。ユルゲンスに写真を見せた結果は
Yeah, about that.
死んだ。
はい。病院で今しがた。私が不注意にもボールペンを渡してしまったが、
Yeah.
重要な証人がこんなことに。ただライヒワイン先生、彼の自殺は明らかにヨハンの写真に反応したためです。
すぐリヒャルトに連絡する。
It might be too late. Might be too late.
1989年に国連で成立した子供の権利条約の
Right,
研
they
究
brought
を
that
して
up.
いまして、お酒はいかがですか、リヒャルトさん。
This guy. This guy.
お酒やめられたんですね。
Oh my God.
お酒に酔った勢いで例の少年を処刑したんですからね。
Yep.
違いますか？僕がお聞きしたいのはそれ
Oh
に関
no,
す
he's
る
gonna
ことです
use it. Yeah. It's one of the
あなた
possibilities.
が撃ち殺した少年シュテファン・ヨース17歳。
レイプ殺人9件、殺人未遂2件。
それで処刑した。
処刑じゃない。
あ、失礼。 ところで
He's good.
子供の権利
He's
条
good.
約
He's just
40条では法律に基づき有罪が立証されるまでは無罪と推定されるとあるのはご存知ですよね。では37条18歳未満の者が犯した犯罪に
again.
対
He's
して
using that
死
term.
刑及び釈放の可能性がない終身刑を課してはならないというのは
私が彼を撃ったのは処刑なんかじゃない。酒によっての過ちだ。私は取り返しのつかないことをしてしまったと思ってる。
I've paid the
社会的
price.
な制裁もこうして受けて。
まあまあ僕は大学のレポートを書くために
Richard,
あな
you've
た
got
に
to
お会
keep
いしたか
calm,
った
man.
んです
He's got you. He's got you right now.
気分を損ねられたのなら謝ります。
Yeah.
気分転換に少し歩きませんか？このウイスキーください。夜風がまだまだ冷えますからね。もっと知る必要がありますね。それが彼を語る上でも重要なポイントなんです。
Yeah, he's about to do a number on
彼
Richard.
のいた施設、それはひどいところでした。
Horrible place.
彼は実にいい子でした。
Oh god, here
でも
comes a
あの
guilt
施設
trip.
で彼がどんなひどい目にあったか、そこで
I
彼
mean,
の
it's
精
more than a
神
guilt
が
trip.
どんな風に切り刻まれていったか、いや、そんなものをあげるのも虚しい悪夢のような場所だったんですよ。あの511キンダーハイムというところ。
Oh my god.
娘さんには会えそうですか？
なんでなぜ知ってるんだ？
さっきお宅で電話されてたのは娘さんですか？会われるんですか？
何なんだお前の目的は。お前が今シューバルトのところにいる目的だ。
Look at these shots.
お前は誰なんだ？
Don't. Oh my god, it's already too late.
あなたはお酒によって少年を撃ったと言い
Wow.
ましたね。
その前に私の質問に答えろ。
でもおかしいんですよね。僕の調べたところだと少年を殺害する前にあなたが飲んでいる姿を見かけた人が一人もいないんですよ。
Oh, he's using that angle, eh?
あなた少年を撃った時飲んでいなかったんじゃないですか？シラフだった、冷静だった。彼を処刑しようと思って冷静に引き金を引いた。
Keep it together. Keep it
違
together.
いますか？
違う。
あの少年の罪は確定していましたか？あなたに彼を処刑する権利はありますか？
Oh god,
嘘を
Richard.
つけばあなたの罪がなくなると思いますか？
He knows how to trigger you. Look at that.
なんて重い罪なんだ。そんな重い罪を犯した人間が立派に立ち直ったような顔をして娘さんに会うんですか？
Piece by piece, he's breaking him down. Wow. Oh. That smirk.
どうです？
Oh.
飲みませんか？
And that's that, isn't it?
あなたの患者のリヒャルト・ブラウンが死にました。
Man, I knew that's coming, but wow, that's still really. Oh. That still really hurt. You know, to have it slowly inch towards that, and then, of course, seeing the rooftop, it's like done and dusted. It's a done deal, right? Okay, so yeah, I mean, first of all, it's an incredible episode. I mean, it's a contender for best episode of the series so far. You know, there's a handful of them, I believe, that can easily be, considered the best episode of the series as of this point. It's an incredible piece of anime. Sorry, incredible episode of anime. It's phenomenal. It really is. And the thing is, it's as incredible as it is. It's really quite difficult to watch, isn't it? And specifically Richard's downfall. Right. The thing is, us, the audience, knows that, this is coming from miles at this point, right? Episodes ago. It's not as if, all of a sudden it becomes clear in this episode that, oh no, Richard's a goner. No, us, the audience knows he's a goner. And of course, it's all by design. Urasawa wrote it in that manner, right? Yet, he knew that he's going to be able to still surprise or shock the audience, right? Because, even if all of us knew it's coming, it's still really quite difficult to get through it, isn't it? Right? It still kind of keeps you at the edge of your seat. It's still able to get a reaction out of you. Over the span of the last few episodes, I became so invested in Richard and his redemption arc, his mini redemption arc, right? It's like, it's set up in that manner, right? Urasawa knew that the audience is going to be in Richard's corner, right? Cheering him on, every step of the way on his recovery, as he atones for his mistakes. Though, of course, there's some potential new information is presented to the audience really late in the game, right? As far as Richard is concerned. So, I'll get into that aspect of it. But up until a certain point, right, it's just, all of us are in Richard's corner, and, all of us want him to see his daughter, right, to see her again. But, the thing is, the moment he gets that call, the moment his daughter calls him, that's it. It's almost kind of like the kiss of death, right? It's the hope that kills. At that moment, the Grim Reaper himself shows up at his doorstep. And, the moment Johan shows up on that doorstep, and you see his silhouette, you see his shadow, then it goes from inevitable to, oh my God, I have to prepare myself now because he's about to dismantle this man, right? And of course, that's exactly how it all plays out. He does an absolute number on Richard, right? He gives him that final push, right? That final frame of him pulling out the bottle. My God. Oh. The thing is, to see Johan do his thing, to truly see him do his thing, it is just, I don't know, it's so cold. It's sinister. You feel disgusted. It's terrifying. All of it. And yeah, he's essentially a master of his craft. Now, of course, there's a lot to get to in terms of all of the buildup leading up to that moment, as he offers the bottle. And listen, I'm sure he did his research and he got just the right drink. The drink that maybe Richard is known to enjoy, right? Johan does everything. He puts in the legwork. He does his research. He does. So I'm sure even the drink itself is one that, Richard probably likes, right? And, this might come into play, in the next episode or the episode after that. I mean, realistically speaking, it really should be the next episode, the immediate aftermath, as far as any potential police investigation is concerned, right? In terms of potential foul play, right? Or was it just a case of a former alcoholic relapsing and falling to his death, right? I mean, yes, again, much to kind of debate and contemplate and all of that. But, I kind of want to focus a bit on the final moments of this episode, right? His therapist getting that knock on the door. Just imagine being in that position. I mean, I think the actual, drawing of his expressions, the animation of his expression, it does actually do a fantastic job of depicting his shock, his horror at the news he's hearing, because he must be baffled, right? He truly must be baffled, because that is just not going to add up at all for both his therapist. I know they said his name a few times, but I'm not going to try just yet. Give me one more episode. Hopefully by the time I get to the next episode, I can, give it a shot. But, his therapist, he's going to know there's foul play at hand here, right? Things are not adding up here. And of course, now he's got Rudy here as well. So even if Richard is out of the picture, it kind of carries on through Rudy and his therapist. They're both going to know that this is just highly suspicious. Just things are not adding up here, right? They're going to know that, there's a good chance that, of course, the person that they are kind of investigating recently, Johan, he might have a hand in this. I mean, Rudy straight up just gets to see another person that offs himself because of Johan, right? Johan triggered that response. Jurgens offed himself. Now, listen, him stabbing himself, I'm not sure how realistic that is, how effective that is. I don't know, maybe he was able to penetrate far enough. Maybe he knows exactly how to, kill himself. Maybe, he's looked into this before over the years, for, certain situations. But of course, once again, the moment he asks for a pen, okay, yeah, this is not going to end well. Now, the thing that really surprised me is him scratching out Johan's his hair, his blonde hair. Now, the thing is, initially I thought he's about to scratch out his face, right? Kind of like those photos in the basement. But no, instead, he's scratching out the hair. And then he confirms that he actually did meet him one time at the park. So him scratching out the blonde hair kind of implies that he saw him in a different state, right? Perhaps he had another disguise on, right? Black hair, perhaps, or darker hair. Or he saw him. See, I'm not able to kind of pinpoint. I'm not able to, I'm not able to pinpoint if he saw him as a young adult, or if he actually saw younger Johan, right? A Johan who had a shaved head, right? This could go back many years, essentially. But, my first thought was, okay, maybe he saw him under a different disguise. But yeah, I'm sure the therapist is going to take this quite hard. It's going to hit him hard. It is. Because someone in his position is going to think, could I have done more for him, right? Did I let him down in some way? Did I actually not do my part? Did I not do my job, right? So of course, those are natural, thoughts that might occur to someone, to a human being. But then, oh my God, how about Rosemary? Imagine the lifelong trauma that she's kind of been inflicted with now, right? Oh God, yeah, man, yeah, that just kind of hit me right now. Wow. And the thing is, someone like Johan knows about that. He knows that Richard dying is going to affect a lot of people, right? It is going to affect his daughter. And also, clearly, this is a showpiece episode for the anime as well, from a technical and production standpoint. The detail in the animation itself, in the art direction, right, in the camera movement, all of that, this is a showpiece episode. And yeah, it makes sense that it is. Even the detail in Johan's hair is really quite noticeable, right? How it kind of moves, it's subtle, but it's really quite noticeable in this episode in comparison to most episodes, right? And you see a lot of his hair because you see a lot of the back of Johan, right? That's a bit of a running theme at this point. You'll see a lot of the back of his head, just the back of him altogether. In a lot of these situations, he's leading. He's always leading. It feels like he allows people to have this false sense of control, of safety, In this specific case, in Richard's specific case, it's clearly quite a deliberate choice as well, because at the end of the day, Richard didn't have to go after him. He didn't have to go take that night stroll. He didn't have to go up the stairs. He didn't have to stay on the rooftop, but he did. Yes, from one perspective, it might actually seem a bit silly, but then there's a lot of reasons, a plethora of reasons for Richard to actually kind of latch onto him and keep following him. And the thing is, Johan knew this. He knew this, that Richard is going to take him up on the offer for the night stroll, right? Because he knows he's got him on a hook. He does. And he also knows that Richard, since he is trying to, kind of turn his life around and kind of, atone for that mistake, essentially, right? Again, the details on that become a little bit murky, right? Again, I'll get to that. But now Richard is in this phase of, okay, I need to do everything by the book. You see that even though he has a lot of suspicions about I almost said Jurgens, about Johan, he does not want to judge him guilty, right? Because he feels like he made that mistake in the past before, and that ruined his life, right? Almost ruined his life. And since then, step by step, he's kind of recovered, and he's trying his best. So at this point, Richard is trying his best to give Johan every chance, right? The benefit of the doubt, all of it, taking a totally different approach to the Stefan Jost incident. Because there, the implication now is that, he decided to become the judge, the jury, the executioner, took it upon himself to take out Jost. And, there's a lot of food for thought here, right near the end of Richard's arc, essentially his mini arc. There is a bit of a twist at play, isn't there? Right now, us, the audience, is kind of left debating, was he actually sober? There's a case to be made here that indeed he might have been sober, but there's also a case to be made here that this is just Johan doing his thing, right? And he knows how to trigger Richard. He knows how to just kind of get him agitated. You see that Richard becomes really quite defensive inside of the bar. His reaction to Johan claiming that indeed you were sober, that's quite a telling reaction, isn't it? And again, the really fantastic, detailed expressions come into play here, right? The production side of things. I mean, the visual storytelling in this one is just, again, it's one of the standouts. So yeah, at this point, I'm not able to give like a definitive, reasoning for either, possibility in terms of, was he sober? Was he actually under the influence? But the thing is, at the end of the day, the thing is, or he was beginning to feel that, oh my God, yeah, that's entirely possible, right? Hell, he might have actually even convinced himself at that moment that he's right. I was sober. It's entirely possible that he completely was under the influence. But Johan made such a compelling case there, and he knows the state Richard is in. It's quite a fragile state. Yes, he's been on the road to recovery, and hell, his therapist even said that he's made a full recovery. But still, here in that moment up top on that rooftop, you see that it's on a knife's edge. He only really needed this final push, right? And Johan provided it. Hell, at this point, I guess I didn't even discuss my actual thoughts on his actual manner of death, or the manner of death. Listen, at no point do I feel that Johan actually physically pushed him. I don't know. I'm not sure. It's just not a thought that feels right, because that's just not how Johan does things. That's not how he executes his plans. He did more than enough to give Richard the initiative, essentially, right? Because up until this point, it's become quite clear that Johan, he kind of lets other people do the heavy lifting for him, right? Do the work for him. I mean, yes, he certainly does his research, but by, doing the work for him, I mean, the dirty work, getting their hands dirty and keeping your hands clean. I mean, that's been really, really quite clear at this point, other than maybe that one really specific situation, right? Earlier on in the series, as he shot someone in front of Tenma, right? That's the one really specific, unique case of this, him actually getting his hands dirty, right? At least on screen. And I think it's one of the main reasons he's been so devastatingly effective, right? Never do yourself what others can do for you. He's a master at using his enemies. I mean, some of them maybe don't even classify as enemies, right? That's really quite the significant term. Some of them he might actually just consider obstacles, right? But, regardless of that, he's just so good. So good. He's perfected it, actually. I mean, Johan is simply a master of, drawing out the inherent darkness that's present within everyone's hearts, right? And he's able to kind of tap into that and amplify it, right? I mean, you see it. You really kind of get to see his surgical approach, right? Piece by piece, he just undoes. I don't know. Has it been years? I'm kind of having a brain fart moment. Years in terms of Richard's recovery. Maybe not years, but it's still been a significant amount of time. But the moment Johan commandeers his mind, hijacks his mind, it's a matter of time, right? Almost in a split moment. There's this there's this domino effect. He just undoes all of it. It is something really, I mean, of course, it's sad to see Richard fall apart in that manner, but it is something really quite special to see how Johan actually functions. I mean, this right here was the most significant, up close and personal look at how Johan functions, how he dismantles from within, right? My God, Johan in this episode, like I said a little bit earlier, is just really, I don't know, man. Disgusting is kind of the term that comes to mind. I mean, there's a few terms that come to mind. He's certainly quite impressive from a certain perspective as well, right? But terrifying, disturbing. I mean, goddamn, to deliberately make someone relapse, right? Though that's not a confirmation just yet. I guess I'll know almost immediately in the next episode or so, if they do find alcohol in his system, right? And then, that might actually give me a few answers in terms of, did he actually, actually take the bait in that moment, because at this point it's still not a given, it's still not a definitive scenario in terms of, okay, did he actually accept the drink and he potentially just drowned all of that guilt he's feeling in that moment and found himself really quite tipsy and he takes a tumble, right? That's one of the possibilities. The other one being he in a sober state actually decided that this is his last option, right? Johan can do that to you. He can push you into a corner, right? Just bombards you. And, that scene, to me, it was almost like he's shooting him, right? Metaphorically. But it felt like he's shooting him. It's gunshot after gunshot. And all he's really doing is, just kind of putting statements out there, putting questions out there. And those questions are like daggers, like razors that, Richard has to swallow. And he must have tackled those questions so many times, right? Again, tough pill to swallow, razors to swallow. In his recovery, he must have contemplated all of those questions. And even though they have shown us that Johan can be really quite proficient with an actual firearm, his words can kill. They certainly can. My God. And, this whole thing about kind of hijacking and kind of, reeling people in, right? You've got even Jurgens. I mean, there's a significant revelation there, right? Right before he tells Rudy about, I came across him and he was with a lot of other children. So maybe it was Johan, a young adult Johan. He just maybe happened to have a disguise, right? Darker hair, because it kind of checks out, right? Again, they kind of remind us of that, right? His connection with orphans, specifically in the beginning of this episode as well. And, I think for that reason, this wasn't just, it's just business, nothing personal. Maybe there is a personal element in there, right? Of course, a part of it is because, unfortunately for Richard, he got a little too close to the sun, right? But, there's another element. There is his execution. At least that's how Johan puts it and, triggers Richard on a few occasions. This is a little bit personal as well. This could easily be Johan wanting to put Richard in his place, again, from Johan's perspective, right? Though, of course, there's a strong case to be made. There's certainly some food for thought in terms of how Richard handled this, right? There's even this notion of him not confirming the crimes, right? I mean, the crimes that he does mention inside of the bar, these are heinous crimes, of course, but there is some doubt creeping in, right? For both, Richard and for us, the audience, But again, the thing is, it's entirely possible that Richard actually legitimately does not remember, right? So his mind is just playing all of these tricks, right? He's going down a dark place, right? That's Johan, right? That's his MO. He'll pull you into the abyss, the darkness within you. So even that idea is really quite terrifying for someone like Richard. The notion of, okay, I actually don't know. He actually might be right. It's possible, right? And by the time, there's that one significant moment, right? Again, after he's just bombarding Richard with these questions and these statements, right? These are statements. At one point, sure, there's questions. Then it kind of shifts to Johan making statements. And these are damning statements. And you see how hard these statements hit Richard, right? And there's that one moment, oh my God, that smirk, right? He knew at that moment that he had him. It's a done deal. It's over. But yeah, to see Johan do his thing, my God, it's really, really quite terrifying how effortlessly he can just get someone to self-destruct, just guide them into that internal conflict that already exists. And the thing is, episodes ago at this point, Rudy actually said something really quite similar about, or he came to a similar understanding of Johan, that he is able to just take control and make people, or at least other killers, I believe I think he specified murderers or killers. He's able to do them, or he's able to make them do as he pleases, right? And maybe I should go finish my point about Jurgens. Jurgens actually wanted out. He had that thought in his mind, right? But no, Johan, I guess Johan knew even then that he needs Jurgen, right? He's got a part to play, and he reels him in. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. That's applicable to both Jurgens and Richard. But of course, Jurgens is, he showed an interest in maybe stepping out, right? Maybe backing off, leaving all of this behind. But Richard was truly beginning to feel like, yeah, this is good. He even got the green light that he's made a full recovery, right? So yeah, it's crazy how easily Johan was able to undo all of that hard work that both Richard and the therapist put in, right? But the thing, one of the reasons I kind of keep thinking that, Richard actually was under the influence is because of how much time and effort he is kind of putting into the recovery aspect of it, or he has put into the recovery aspect of it. Because if he was sober at the time, he knew he's accepting everything he's about to put into motion, by shooting Stefan, right? So he knew, but again, I was about to say, he accepted the potential consequences at that moment if he was to kind of get caught, right? If it was to come to light that, he was sober. But again, there's that idea of, okay, he got drunk after the fact, right? So that made everything really quite, I don't know, murky for him as well, right? Maybe that was by design as well. If you look at it from Richard's perspective, right? He did the deed, he did the thing, he shot Stefan Jost from Kinderheim 511. Now, I was kind of under the impression that no one survived other than Johan, right? But I guess not. Maybe there's a few that got out, and I'm sure Johan kept contact with Stefan Jost as well. I mean, through some of the things that Johan is saying about Stefan Jost and some of the opportunities that were not afforded to Johan, bit of a slip up there to Stefan. So because of him explaining all of that, the tough times God damn it, I keep mixing the two up. The tough times that Stefan Jost had, through extension, you're getting a bit of insight. Us, the audience, is able to gain a bit of insight into how Johan thinks he was treated, right? Because it's really quite similar to his own treatment. It is the same as his own treatment, right? The things he wasn't given, right? The opportunities he wasn't afforded. And then of course, in the beginning of the episode, you see, right, the children playing, and through that the one kid, right, and the things he has to say, maybe again through extension, you kind of get a bit of insight into Johan as a young child of that age and his thought process at the time, right? Maybe it's evolved since, right? And now he's a young adult. Of course, it's become a bit more nuanced perhaps in his mind, but you can kind of see that maybe Johan himself also thought like that at that age, right? Chaos for chaos's sake. So to me, it felt like Johan does not feel that Richard deserves this second chance, a chance to recover and a chance to gain his family back, a chance to, go back to his daughter, right? That's another thing that really, really, that must have been a tough pill to swallow once again for Richard, right? Once Johan brings up the idea of, okay, once he unburies that sin, that potential sin, then he brings up the notion of, do you think someone like you deserves to face your daughter, right? Do you think you've recovered that you've paid for those sins? And again, that did a number on Richard. At that moment, he legitimately must have felt, oh my God, he's right. I don't know if I deserve this. And the crazy thing about all of this is that I'm not even sure if that hallucination he keeps having, that image he keeps seeing of Stefan Jost, if that is actually accurate, right? Up until this point, yeah, I just kind of assumed, okay, it is. That's the actual encounter, because he keeps seeing that exact same image in his mind. It keeps haunting him, right? But I'm not even sure if Stefan Jost was armed, right? So, the thing is, in extension to Richard, Johan's doing a number on us, the audience, as well, because now us, the audience, is not sure anymore at all, right? It could be just this figment of his imagination. His mind, his guilty mind, possibly may have kind of thrown up this hallucination that he keeps seeing, right? Really distinct, right? Stefan's face. The thing is, I kept saying, oh, this does not look like a teenager, right? So now it's actually even beginning to feel like maybe Richard's mind is painting a really specific picture of Stefan Jost, right? That face, the face of a demented killer, perhaps, right? That shot of him raising the gun at him, and that really specific expression on his face as well, on Stefan Jost's face as well, right? It's almost as if, he's convinced himself, this is how it played out. I had to shoot him. If I didn't shoot him, he would have shot me. And of course, you bring in all of the crimes that he potentially committed. But I think that ultimately either side is really quite compelling. Him being sober and him being under the influence. Because if you go down that route, of him being sober, yeah, it takes a solid chunk of this episode, of that conversation. A solid chunk of it happens inside of the bar, right? You see that Johan brings up, or he begins to dabble in the difference between legality and morality, right? The proper response, moral accounting. And balancing those books of moral accounting becomes even more difficult and complex when moral action is at odds with legal action. So there's certainly an interesting question being asked here about Richard's potential approach if he was sober, right? His thought process. Did he believe that he must take legal action? Sorry, not legal. Did he believe that he must take illegal action to balance the moral books, right? And did he at that time accept the price he must pay as well, right? If he was to be caught. There's that saying, isn't there, that there's a thin line between acting inside and outside of the law. And, on many occasions, a lot of times, you actually end up committing the bigger crime. But, another thing that comes to mind here is him explaining to his therapist a few episodes ago, maybe even in the last episode, that he understood. It was the last episode, yeah. He understands that true evil exists. The moment he saw Stefan Jos, the look in his eyes, right, and all of that, he felt that true evil truly does exist. I don't know. That's a really clear thought to have, right, for someone that is meant to be under the influence, right? That sounds like a thought that someone sober would have. And the thing is, it does kind of go back to Kinderheim 511, right? And the treatment of these young children and the people, or the monsters, the young monsters that they try to churn out, right? Or turn them into. He felt the presence of true evil. So, again, in extension, Johan came out of Kinderheim 511 as well, even though he's a little bit special in comparison to most of the experiments there. He already had that. He already had it, right? That it factor. And it's really quite clever that Urasawa kind of stages it in this manner, because through Richard and Stefan Jos, you kind of have a bit of a look at the potential situation between Tenma and Johan, right? It's that situation, but in a mini arc, contained within a mini arc, but also kind of giving us a bit of insight into how that could potentially play out, right? If Tenma was to be in a situation, right, to shoot Johan, right? And how things could play out if he does shoot Johan or if he doesn't shoot Johan. I think I speculated about this a long time ago, early on in the series, I think. And then, that what if situation, right? That I was kind of contemplating, if he had the chance, or not the chance. I mean, yeah, it really wouldn't be a chance. If he found himself in that situation once again, knowing how Johan is, right? Who Johan is as a person, could he operate on him, right? Could he make that choice once again to operate on him, regardless of the type of person he is, right? So there's a lot of interesting, what if situations to think about. But here in this mini, example through Richard and Stefan Jos, you see just how much of an impact it had on Richard, after killing Stefan Jos. Right. And that's the thing I really appreciate about this anime. Right. And it's not that surprising given how grounded it is. It treats death with a lot of respect. It is significant, and it plays a major part in anyone's trajectory from that point on. Right. So all of these examples, all of these, case studies within these mini arcs can all be applicable at some point, perhaps, to, the major conflict at hand, perhaps. Right. Tenma and Johan. But, this whole idea of Johan bringing up all of these laws that should have applied to someone like Stefan Jos, right? The implication kind of here is that, Richard knew about all of these, as he himself kind of confirms. Again, he's kind of agitated, a little bit defensive. There's this implication that Richard knows all of that, and he knows the process of it all. And, he at that moment decided, okay, I'm going to be judge, jury, and executioner, right? He wanted this kid, or I said kid. He is a kid essentially. Not technically, but he's a young adult, right? He's not quite considered a full adult just yet. Stefan Jos, that is. But there's this implication that Richard decided in the moment that no, I'm going to he's going to pay for this, and I'm going to do that right now, right? Because who knows how long the justice system might take. Or if he is going to be punished at all down the line, right? There's a lot of different, what if type situations being brought up here. So let's kind of move on to some of the other things that happen. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? You have an entire half of an episode essentially that is kind of focusing on, some of the legwork, some of his final legwork. Richard, that is, right? He goes to a family called the Lieberts, right? So this family just happens to be another family that is called the Lieberts. They had a son who also happened to be called Johan Liebert, who died at 2 years old. And Johan is masquerading as that Johan Liebert, right? He took that name. And then, of course, they explain the whole death certificate situation, the fire, right? Once again, kind of alluding to the other fire that's kind of been set up, right? Or being alluded to. The fire at the university, right? It's that club, those three guys that are talking about this fire, that prophecy. If that is the case, then what exactly is Johan going to try to get rid of in that potential fire, right? I don't think I have enough information as of this point to really speculate much, but clearly something that is crucial, that is, crucial to his past, to him as a person, how he functions. So that's a little bit far-fetched, isn't it? I mean, I don't know, maybe it's not that far-fetched, maybe it is a really common name, but for the purposes of this really specific story about Johan, to have two sets of Lieberts, it's kind of a convenient coincidence, isn't it? So this is how he actually got that name. Of course, they've confirmed that Johan isn't his actual name, but that's the name, that's the most significant name that's kind of associated with him throughout the story. So, that's the name that us, the audience, kind of uses and the story is using as well. So he took that name. And I believe it said April 1st, the day of the death on the tombstone, right? Or on the translation of the tombstone, was it? So that's, April Fool's Day and all of that. Again, everything's by design, isn't it? So he took that name and he's masquerading as their child. Listen, there's a possibility that this aspect of it is kind of a bit murky in my mind at the moment. Maybe I'm kind of, mixing the things up. Maybe I'll have to go back to that episode, to that portion once again, and, give my thoughts again in the next episode on that specific component. So, so that family is just kind of playing along. They've played along this whole time, right? They knew their son's dead, of course, but then they kind of adopted this Johan, right? This new Johan, and he kind of took place as their son. As I'm trying to think about it, then, these other possibilities come up in terms of timelines and all of that, the other Lieberts in the first few episodes of the series, right? The ones that died, the ones that defected and all of that, right? Yeah, I'm trying to think about the timeline, but at this moment, I'm kind of, it's all kind of jumbled up in my mind. I'll give it another shot in the next episode. That component of it, him taking that name and masquerading as Johan Liebert, as the new Johan Liebert, and then how it all kind of lines up in the case of the other Lieberts. These are the OG Lieberts, I suppose. And then there's the other set of Lieberts that died. Ooh, also, I touched upon the Jurgen scene and the pen in the ear to the brain and all of that. The scene itself, right? Oh my God. The quick cuts. So effective there. The wide angle lenses, the fisheye lens is really quite effectively utilized in this episode. There's a really fantastic shot of Johan at Richard's doorstep as well. Right, the distortion that you usually get from a really wide angle lens. Really enjoyed that aspect of this episode. As many of you know by now, one of my favorite elements of filmmaking, of live action shows is, the photography, the cinematography, all of that, right? The color grading process, post-production, all of that. So of course, that's applicable to anime as well, to animated stuff as well, right? In terms of the art direction, the camera movement is certainly quite applicable, even if it is animated. I've seen some amazing cinematography and camera movement in anime, right? And this is no different. Monster is certainly really quite impressive in that department. But yeah, I think that should do it for this one. But there's a really interesting line of dialogue again in the early stages of the episode as those children are playing, right? I think Johan said something along the lines of, but the hardest part comes after you conquer the world, right? That's the true challenge of it all. Like I said, through extension, or by extension, you can gain a bit of insight into Johan as well. And of course, it's at that moment you get that really sudden cut of the hedge trimmer. Yeah. But yeah, man, I've got to say, this is just gripping drama, right? It's essentially on the same level as many live action films, live action shows, right, of the same genre. This is just really quite impressive. And, like I said earlier, this is one of the best episodes of the series, of this anime. It easily could be a contender for the best episode so far. And like I said, it's a showpiece episode, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And if you enjoyed this, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in timer-based full length or full opacity, consider checking out the Patreon page and potentially supporting the channel. The links are in the description and the pinned comment if that's something you're interested in. There's also links to social media if that's your thing. I am active on Twitter. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for episode 30. Until then, take it easy.